couch right now, but hopefully you guys can hear me better with my AirPods in. It sounded a little quiet, not really sure why. But we're going to be reading chapter 6 of Cinder, the Lunar Chronicles. Cinder slinked through the balmy night, the sound of her boots scuffling against the concrete as if both legs were made of steel. The empty night was a chorus of muted sounds in her head, the sandy crunching of Ayoko's treads, the sputtering of the street lamps above them, the constant hum of the magnetic superconductor beneath the street. With every step, the wrench inside Cinder's calf clanked. It was dull in comparison to the video replaying in her mind. Her interface did that sometimes, recording moments of strong emotion and replaying them over and over, like deja vu, or when the last words of a conversation lingered in the air long after the sentence had settled in. Usually she could make the memory stop, but before it drove her crazy. But tonight she didn't have the energy. The black splotch on Penny's skin, the scream, the Medroid's syringe dragging Cinder's blood from the flesh of her elbow. Penny, small and trembling on the gurney, already dying. She stopped, clutching her stomach as nausea rolled up. Ayoko paused a few paces ahead, shining her spotlight on Cinder's scrunched face. "Are you all right?" The light darted down the length of Cinder's body, and she was sure Ayoko was searching for bruise-like rings, even though the Medroids said she wasn't infected. Instead of answering, Cinder peeled off her gloves and shoved them in her back pocket. Her faintness passing, she leaned her shoulder against a street lamp and drank in the humid air. They'd made it home, almost. The Phoenix Tower apartment stood on the next corner, only the top floor catching the faint light from the crescent moon, the rest of the building cast in shadow. The windows were black, but for a handful of lights and some bluish-white glares from flickering net screens, Cinder counted floors, finding the windows to the kitchen and Audrey's bedroom. Though dim, a light was still on somewhere in the apartment. Audrey wasn't a night person, but perhaps she discovered that Penny was still out. Or perhaps Pearl was awake, working on a school project or calming friends late into the night. It was probably better this way. She didn't want to have to wake them. What am I going to tell them? Ayoko's sensor was on the apartment building for a moment, then the ground, picking up the shuffled debris across the sidewalk. Cinder rubbed her sweaty palm on her hands and forced herself onward. Try as she might, suitable words did not come to her. Explanations, excuses. How do you tell a woman her daughter is dying? She swiped her ID and entered through the main door this time. The gray lobby was decorated only with a net screen that held announcements for the residents. A rise in maintenance fees, a petition for a new ID scanner at the front door, a lost cat, then the elevator loud with the clunking of old machinery. The hallway was empty, save the man from apartment 1807 snoozing on his doorstep. Cinder had a tuck in his splayed arm so Ayoko wouldn't crush it. Breathing heavily, and the sweet aroma of rice wine wafted up. She hesitated in front of apartment 1820, heart pounding. She couldn't recall when the video of Penny had stopped repeating in her head, ellipsed by her harsh nerves. What was she going to say? Cinder bit her lip and held up her wrist for the scanner. The small light switched to green. She opened the door as quietly as possible. Brightness from the living room spilled into the dark hallway. Cinder caught a glimpse of the net screen, still showing footage of the market from earlier that day. The baker's booth going up in flames again and again. The screen was muted. Cinder entered the room, but halted mid-step. Ayoko bumped against her leg. Facing her from the middle of the living room were 3 androids, with red crosses painted on their spherical heads, emergency med androids. Behind them, Audrey in her silk bathrobe stood against the mantel, although the holographic fire was turned off. Pearl was still fully clothed, sitting on the sofa with her knees pulled up to her chin. They were both holding dry washcloths over their noses and eyes, Cinder with a mixture of repulsion and fear. Eyeing Cinder with a mixture of repulsion and fear. Cinder's stomach clenched. She drew a half step back into the hallway, wondering which of them was sick, but she quietly realized that neither of them could be. The androids would have taken them immediately. They wouldn't be protecting their breath. The entire building would be on lockdown. She noticed a small bandage on Andrew's elbow. They'd already been tested. Cinder shifted her messenger bag, settling it on the ground, but kept the mag belt. Audrey cleared her throat and lowered the cloth to her sternum. She looked like a skeleton in the pale light, mealy skin and jutting bones. Without makeup, dark circles swelled beneath her bloodshot eyes. She'd been crying, but now her lips were set in a stiff line. I received a comment an hour ago, she said once the silence had congealed in the room. It informed me that Penny was taken up to the Tajin District junkyard, was picked up in the Tajin District junkyard and taken. Her voice broke. She dropped her gaze, and when she looked up again, her eyes were flashing. But you know that already, don't you? Cinder shifted, trying not to look at the med droids. Without waiting for Cinder's answer, Adri said, Aiko, you can be disposing of Penny's things. Anything she wore in the last week can go into a waste collection. But take it to the alley yourself. I don't want it clogging up the chutes. I suppose everything else can be sold in the market. Her voice was sharp and steady, as if this list had been repeating in her head from the moment she received the news. Yes, Li Jing. I apologize again for the names, but said Aiko, wheeling back into the hallway. Cinder stayed frozen, both hands clutching the mag bolt like a shield. Though the android was incapable of ignoring Audrey's command, it was clear from her slowness that she didn't want to leave Cinder alone as long as the med droids were watching with their hollow yellow sensors. Why, said Audrey, wringing the washcloth, was my youngest daughter at the Tajin District junkyard this evening? Cinder drew the mag belt against her, lining up from shoulder to toe. It's made of the same steel as her hand and equally tarnished. It felt like an extension of her. She came with me to look for a mag belt. She drew in a heavy breath. Her tongue felt swollen, her throat closing in. I'm sorry. I didn't. I saw the spots and I called the emergency hover. I didn't know what to do. Tears puddled in Audrey's eyes, briefly before she blinked them away. She dropped her head, staring down at the twisted cloth. Her body sagged against the mantle. I wasn't sure they would come back here, Cinder. I was expected to receive another comment any minute, telling me that my ward had also been taken. Audrey pulled her shoulders back, lifting her gaze. The weakness passed, her dark eyes hardened. These med droids tested Pearl and myself. The plague has not yet spread to either of us. Cinder started to nod, relieved, but Adri continued, Tell me, Cinder, if Pearl and I are not carrying the disease, where did Penny get it from? I do not know. You don't know, and you did know about the outbreak in the market today. Cinder's lips parted. Of course, the Kloss, the med droids. They thought she was infected. You don't understand, Cinder. How could you be so selfish? She jerked her head no. They tested me too at the junkyard. I don't have it. I don't know where she got it from. She held out her arm, showing the bruise blooming on her inner elbow. They can check me again if they want to. One of the med droids showed its first sign of life, shining the light at the small red spot where the needle had pricked her. But they didn't move, and Audrey didn't encourage them. Instead, she turned her attention to a small framed port screen on the mantel, shuffling through pictures of Pearl and Penny in their childhood. Pictures at their old house, one with the garden, pictures with Audrey before she lost her smile, pictures with their father. I'm sorry, said Cinder. I love her too. Audrey squeezed the frame. Don't insult me, she said, sliding the flame closer to her. Do your kind even know what love is? Can you feel anything at all, or is it just all programmed? She was talking to herself, but the words stung. Cinder risked a glance at Pearl, who was still sitting on the sofa, with her face half hidden behind her knees, but she was no longer holding the washcloth to her face. When she saw Cinder looking at her, she turned her gaze to the floor. Cinder flexed her fingers against the mag belt. Of course I know what love is, and sadness too. She wished she could cry to prove it. Good, then you will understand what I'm doing. I am doing what a mother must do to protect my children. Audrey turned the frame face down on the mantel. On the couch, Pearl turned her face away, pressing her cheek into her knees. A tremble of fear curled up in Cinder's stomach. Audrey, it's been 5 years since you became a part of this household, Cinder. 5 years since Garin left you for me. I still don't know what made him do it. I don't know why he felt so obligated to travel to Europe, of all places, to find some mutant to take care of. He never explained it to me. Perhaps he would have someday, but I never wanted you. You know that. Cinder pursed her lips. The blank-faced Medroids leaned up against her. She did know it, but she didn't think Audrey had ever put it so clearly. Garen wanted you to be taken care of, so I put my best, even when he died, even when the money ran out, even when everything fell apart. Her voice cracked, and she pressed one palm firmly against her mouth. Cinder watched her shoulders tremble, listening to the short gasps of breath as she tried to sniffle the sobs. But Garen would have agreed. Penny comes first. Our girls come first. Cinder startled at the raised voice. She could hear the justification in Audrey's tone, the determination. Don't leave me with this thing. She shuddered. Audrey, if it weren't for you, Garen would still be alive. And Penny? No, it's not my fault. Cinder spotted a flash of white. Saw Ayako loitering in the hallway, uncertain. Her sensor had gone nearly black. Cinder searched for her voice. Her pulse was throbbing, white spots flickering across her vision. A red warning flickered in the corner of her eye, a recommendation that she calm down. I didn't ask to be made like this. I didn't ask for you or anybody to adopt me. This isn't my fault. This is my fault either. Audrey lashed out, shoving the net screen off its brackets with one shove. It fell and crashed, taking two of her husband's achievement plaques down with it. Bits of plastic ricocheted across the worn carpet. Oh no! Cinder jumped back, but the frenzy fled as fast as it had come. Audrey's ragged breath was already slowing. She was always so careful not to disturb the neighbors, not to be noticed, not to cause commotion, not to do anything that would ruin their reputation, even now. Cinder, said Audrey, chafing her fingers with the washcloth, as if it could ease her lost temper. You will be going with these Medroids. Don't make a scene. The floor shifted. What? Why? Because you have a duty to do what we can. Because we all have a duty to do what we can. And you know what a high demand there is for your type. Especially now. She paused. Her face had gone pink and molted. We can help Penny. They just need cyborgs to find a cure. You volunteered me for plague research? Her mouth could barely form the words. What else was I to do? Cinder's jaw hung. She shook her head dumbly as all three yellow sensors focused on her. But nobody survives the testing. How could you? Nobody survives the plague. If you care for Penny as much as you claim to, you'll do as I say. If you hadn't been so selfish, you would have volunteered yourself after you left the market today for coming here and ruining my family again. But take her away. She's yours. Cinder was too stunned to move as the nearest android held a scanner up to her wrist. It beeped and she flinched away. Lynn Cinder, I said in a metallic voice, your voluntary sacrifice is admired and appreciated by all citizens of the Eastern Commonwealth. A payment will be made to your loved ones as a show of gratitude for your contribution to our ongoing studies. Her grip tightened on the mag belt. No, that's what it is. That's what it is really about, isn't it? You don't care about Penny. You don't care about me. You just want the stupid payout. Audrey's eyes widened, her temples pulling taut against her skull. She crossed the room in 2 steps, the back of her hand whipping across Cinder's face. Cinder fell against the door frame and pressed a hand to her cheek. Take her, said Audrey. Get her out of my sight. I didn't volunteer. You can't take me against my will. The android was unprepared. We have been authorized by your legal guardian to take you into custody through the use of force, if necessary. Cinder curled her fingers, balling a fist against her ear. You can't force me to be a test subject. Yes, said Audrey, her own breathing labored. I can, so long you're under my guardianship. You don't think this will save Penny, so don't pretend this is about her. She has days, the chance of them finding a cure before. Then my only mistake was waiting too long to be rid of you, Audrey said, running the washcloth between her fingers. Believe me, Cinder, you are a sacrifice I will never regret. The treads of one of the Medroids clattered against the carpet. Are you prepared to come with us? Cinder pursed her lips and lowered her hand from her face. She glared at Audrey, but she could find no sympathy in her stepmother's eyes. A new hatred boiled up inside her. Warning slashed in her vision. No, I'm not. Cinder swung the mag bolt, hitting it hard against the android's cranium. The robot fell to the floor, threads spinning midair. I won't go. Scientists have done enough to me already. The second android rolled towards her, initiating procedure 240B. Forcible removal of cyborg draft subject. Cinder sneered and shoved the end of the mag bolt at the android sensor, shattering the lens and thrusting it onto its back. She spun around to face the last android, already thinking how she would run from the apartment, wondering if it would be too risky to call a hover, wondering where to find a knife for cutting out her ID chip. Otherwise, they were sure to track her, wondering if Ayuko would be fast enough to follow, wondering if her legs could carry her all the way to Europe. The med droid approached too fast. She stumbled, changing the trajectory of the mag bolt, but the android's metal pincher grasped her wrist first. Electrodes fired. Electricity sizzled through Cinder's nervous system. The voltage was overwhelming her wiring. Cinder's lips parted, but the cry stuck in the back of her throat. She dropped the mag bolt and collapsed. Red warnings flashed across her vision until, in an act of cyborg self-perseverance, her brain forced her to shut down.